Urmi Hossain is our guest today. Many of us fear change because we are afraid it will not work out. Urmi has challenged that belief. What if it did work out? She is a financial analyst who uses her free time to teach girls and women about finance. The lack of financial education is an obvious void in our curriculums and some cultural norms that hold back females. The lack of basic financial studies has likely contributed to the overwhelming personal debt that many have taken on. Urmi Hossain wants to help change this. When we feel like we're in control of our futures, especially of our financial futures, we can conquer anything, even change. Welcome, Urmi.
Thank you. How are you?
So you have both an Italian and a Bengali background.
hmm
Which culture was most prevalent in your home growing up?
The most prevalent was the Bengali one, because both of my parents are from Bangladesh, and this is how we were raised. We were raised to be Bengali, so that was very much prevalent. We kept all the tradition, the culture. We would eat a lot of like Bengali food. We would speak Bengali, but because I grew up in Italy, I was the one bringing the Italian side in the house. So I would, for instance, I would speak Italian with my sister, sometimes with my parents. Um, I I had a lot of Italian friends, so when they would come over, they were mainly like Italian people. And I am someone who loves to eat pasta. So that's one big thing about me is that I feel like I did grow up in a very Bengali environment, but at the same time, I was bringing the Italian side because my whole upbringing was in the whole, like in Italy. And so I was surrounded by Italian culture, tradition, and people.
So you get the best of both worlds.
Exactly.
um, were you the only girl in your family? What was it like growing up?
I was not the only girl, so I do have a younger sister. Um, but growing up in Italy, being a girl was is already hard enough because of the double standards and the expectation that there is on a girl. But the fact that I was like a Bengali girl made it also very hard because there are so many like Bengali culture being a little bit conservative compared to the Italian one. There were a lot of restriction in some of the things I could do, and I feel like a lot of Bengali girls, Indian or Pakistani, they can relate to. So little things, just going out, hanging out with friends. It was very much, my parents were very protective, and they do have a very, I would say, conservative mindset. So they were always worried. So it was hard for me because I always had to follow or behave by the rules.
Mm.
Whereas when I would see my other Italian friends, I would see the freedom that they had, which is something that I did not really experience when I was a kid. So a lot of the times I would just, spend time at home and helping out at home and or studying. So I never really enjoyed things like going out to watch a movie or going out to a park because my parents were always very, very concerned about that.
Mm. How much of your childhood has shaped the decisions you've made now that you're an adult?
Well, I did recently write a book about this, so I would say that it really did shape my identity. And I think, in a way, it did make me, I would say, tenacious and a strong woman because of all the restriction that I was living with. And I think it took me a lot of courage to write whatever I wrote in my book that I published recently. What I do talk about these little episodes that happened to me when I was a kid and how it was hard for me to grow up and have this identity crisis, I would say, because often times I was never sure what do I associate myself with. Do I say I'm Italian? Do I say I'm Bengali? Like I wasn't really sure if I was, you know, fitting a box, part of a group. So I did really struggle a lot, and only recently I finally like I was like, you know what? I embrace both culture, and I'm gonna say that I am Italian Bengali, and I would say that everything that happened to me really did make me a very resilient person.
Hmm. As you forged your path, especially in the financial field, what are some of the things that you personally see missing in our education systems that perhaps we should be teaching our young kids in their primary and high school years?
Well, it's definitely personal finance because, well, it's even in university, they don't really teach you that. You really have to take an elective to learn about personal finance. But I would say it's really the lack of education about personal finance and basic stuff like budgeting or saving or investing that no one really teaches you about. And this is something that I've seen like worldwide. It happened to me as well. Like I was never really taught about money when I was growing up. I learned about money when I was like 19, 20, when I had my first part-time job. And even then I didn't even know what to do. I just remember like spending money just like that, not saving. And definitely there's like a lack of education, like the school curriculum don't have anything related to personal finance. They don't even hold any type of workshops. And if you want to learn about personal finance, either you have to do the research yourself, or you have to, let's say, go to different organizations like nonprofit organizations that try to promote that. And so definitely in elementary, high school, university, like no one teaches you that. And then when you are in real life and you are like having tons of that, you start to feel the struggle of it. And, you want to understand like, how do I navigate this world of finance, which is very, it can be overwhelming, but it really just, it just requires a little bit of time just to put the effort to understand how it works.
Yeah, it's true. We don't get the financial literacy until
Hmm.
it's too late, until some people have already been bankrupt. And that's
Right.
usually that's the trustee that teaches them how to handle money.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
And is this why you do what you do? Is how much of a difference would even just one lesson in personal finance make for a young person?
Well, the things that I do really, I do it just because I want to make an impact to the world with the things that I know. And I think that every person is resourceful. And I think of myself like that. I just felt like, I have so much knowledge about finance. So no, why not give back to the community and for the things that I believe in through, volunteering and, financially empower women. So, for instance, some of the things that I do are, for instance, I'm part of different nonprofit organizations that are dedicated to help women. And time to time, I did write articles about basic finance, or like how can you save up, how can you like invest, or why it's so important to buy an insurance product and things like that. And I do it because I just generally have the passion, and I do this also through my blog, and it's just something that I feel like sharing to the world. And you can see that little changes happen. People are interested. You can see they, like, people really engage with you, and they ask questions. And I do also mentor women who are interested in financial literacy, and I just provide resources where they can find things where they can actually, like, find them useful and apply in their real life.
What advice would you give someone else on where to begin to learn how to manage their money?
Well, I can tell you a little bit about myself, how I learned it.
Mhm.
And I didn't know anything about personal finance or finance, not until I went to university. And even after I graduated, I still didn't know, because I feel like I do have a major in finance, but even then they only teach you like complicated stuff, like what's a fixed income, what's the stock, well, what's an option, how can you value them, how can you price them. They teach you all these things, which is good if you're investing, but they didn't teach you about saving, budgeting, and stuff like that. So I actually started doing that by watching YouTube videos, because I was looking for free resources, and I tried to do a little bit of like research on finding like who's the good YouTuber, financial YouTuber, who can teach me all these things. So that was one place where I started, was just by watching YouTube videos from people that I actually felt like were good. And then I read a lot of books. I did read a lot of books, and I also I did read a lot of books. I did YouTube, and I also read articles online just to understand a little bit more. And that's how I educated myself. And that's was the easiest and I would say the most cost effective way to actually learn. And it did really like it really did benefit me. And some books, maybe finance book for beginners could be hard, but there are some that are like friendly and they have an easy, they use a very simple language so that it's accessible to anyone. But I would say YouTube is probably your best friend, like honestly.
And then with a video, I love the University of YouTube.
Yes.
And with a particular video that seems very easy to understand, maybe there'll be a book reference in the description.
Yes, they always do reference books, especially one of the girls that I follow. She would reference different books from Robert Kiyosaki. I think I'm mispronouncing his name, but he
Robert
wrote,
Kiyosaki? Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
he wrote like there are some that reference books. They also have courses that you can take, so it's like you can take it online from anywhere. You don't have to go to school. So yeah, they do make references to books and or other resources that you can have access to.
Yes, I'm sure Coursera has many free classes that are financial literacy for beginners,
Yeah.
and any level that you need to understand. I imagine there's some courses in there.
Yes, and now like for people that are like on social media, you have financial advisor that try to attract new clients through Instagram or Facebook, and sometimes they do offer free workshop for anyone who's interested about money. So that's also another way for you to learn or educate yourself when it comes to finances.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's a lot of resources. That's awesome. Something I did not have when I was younger. So it's easy to manage money though when you have it.
Yes.
There are people who live paycheck to paycheck, if they even have the privilege of having a paycheck. So how can you save money when you have to use creative financing to feed your kids one month and pay the utility bills the next month when rent eats up your entire income?
So there is a budgeting tool. It's called 50/30. It's called 50, 30, and 20 or something budgeting tool that tells you like you have to allocate 50% of your income towards this, 30 towards that, and 20 towards something else. And that's a good way to like start, if you want to save or if you want to budget. And of course, like you said, some people live paycheck to paycheck, but I think it also comes to self-discipline, like some people, they just tend to overspend and take on more that they spend on things on they spend more than they earn, and that's when you end up having a lot of that. So some of the things that people can do is like look some of these hacks like 50, 30, and 20% budgeting tool. That's one way where you can save a certain percentage of your salary towards like savings, 1% to like the other percentage towards paying your expenses. And of course, you can have also you can also, yeah, if you also want to make more money, and now that we have gone through the pandemic, there are ways for you to make money online. So there are different websites where, if you have a certain passion for something, like I don't know, you like to sew things, you have an entrepreneurial mindset, you can sell stuff on Etsy or Amazon and make extra and extra income. If you have this a passion for writing, you can write a book and sell it. If you have a skill like cooking skills, you can write a book about that. Or let's say you know how to teach, or you have a passion for languages, there are different platforms where you can sign up to be a tutor. So yes, people live paycheck to paycheck, but it's also about self-discipline and having that mindset that I should not be spending more than my limit, and I have to make an effort to actually save every month a certain percentage like in a savings account, so that I have that in case of emergency. And you have to find ways to generate money from multiple income streams. And that's one thing that I learned a lot through the pandemic, because we have a tendency of like concentrating, like all our income is concentrated in one job. And sometimes, with the pandemic, with economic crisis, you might lose your job and you have nothing. So you want to create like that safety margin by having, multiple sources of income streams.
Hmm. And in North America, we're expected to pay everything by credit card.
I don't
With
know.
without a credit card, you have no credit. You can't rent a hotel room without a credit card. There are some cultures that teach you if you don't have cash, you can't have it. So how much does culture play into financial habits?
I think it does have a big impact, and it's like you said. I think some cultures are so focused on like paying with credit card, and I have seen this a lot in Canada. I've seen this a lot in the States, where people just spend money, they maximize their credit card as if it was nothing, and I think that's actually pretty bad because you're just promoting a mindset of consumerism, which is unhealthy because that's how people are in debt. And definitely that plays a big part in our life. uh, I think other countries they don't like to promote. I think interest rate. Like I don't remember now in which country in particular, but I know that they don't like people taking interest and borrowing money and paying interest. That's one thing that it's like forbidden. I know in some cultures. I do think it plays a big role. So you get really influenced when you see people paying by credit card, and I'm also guilty of that. But I think a good habit is that yes, you can pay with your credit card, but take the habit of like paying it off as soon as possible because then you accumulate interest. Some credit cards like come up with very high fees and do not get. I want to say don't fall for like companies that just sells you credit card just like that, especially like shopping malls. They not shopping malls like some store. They tell you, okay, if you get this credit card, I'm gonna give you this much discount because usually those ones they carry a very high fee. So you have to pay attention to those things. But definitely like paying off your credit card right away. It's something that everyone should be doing, and culture has a very big impact. And I did notice it that when my sister came to visit me, she also felt like she was like, "Oh, you know what? In Canada, people just pay with credit card. I just don't get it. This is why people are in debt." And I said, "Yes, it's very common to see that." Yeah.
It is, yeah. And the horrendous thing is you've got credit card companies targeting university students where they
Yes.
haven't got a job yet, and they rack up crazy debt on their credit
Yes.
cards and with no way to pay it off. So how does
Yes.
that win for the credit card company?
Honestly, I've seen that happen in my university as well, and I was actually walking by the other day, and I looked at this bank, and I was thinking, this is how students are in that because you have these banks that come and sell you this, and they just sell you a dream. They tell you, you can buy anything you want, you don't have to pay any fees, and this is why I think you need to make a research. Like you really have to do the due diligence because nothing comes for free. There is no
Yeah,
such thing as free lunch. And when something is too good to be true, it's just a signal. You really have to pay attention to those things, definitely.
so true. You say that fear is always your greatest ally. Explain what that means to you.
Yes, I did say that, and it is. It is probably my best friend, I would
I
say.
kind of love that saying too.
I love it too, and I think it was a couple of years ago that I was like, I'm looking for something about self development, self improvement, and I was caught by this book which was talking about like fear being a friend, and I was like, you know what, let me just go through this book and see what it is all about, and it just shifted my whole idea about fear because we tend to like when we are fearful, we are scared, we don't go through something, but at the same time, I realized that every time I was fearful, it just led me, and I followed the fear, it just led me to something great. And it happened with the public speaking. So, for
Mm.
instance, I'm part of the Toastmaster Club, and I remember when I first went. to a Toastmaster meeting. I was that scared, and they called me on stage. They were like, okay, you have to do this table topic session. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna die after this. And I remember being super scared. Like my hands were like trembling. My palms were like super sweaty. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't think I can do this. And I was very, very scared. But you know what? I did not give up. I know that this was a very scary thing, but at the same time, I also realized that every time I was speaking in front of the audience, and even though I would embarrass myself in front of everyone, the moment I would finish up speaking, I just felt like I was becoming a little bit more confident, a little bit more fearless. And that's how I realized that fear is my best friend, because it led me to be uncomfortable, like be comfortable with the uncomfortable. And it happened, I would say, in every aspect of my life. And public speaking was one of them. Creating my YouTube channel was another one, because I was so not comfortable with that. Speaking in a podcast was something that I was never comfortable with that. But I realized that we are fearful because we do not know the outcome, but there is always something beautiful on the other side of fear. And I always feel like fear is just there to hold my hand and be like, everything is going to be okay, and it will just help you like to get closer to your true self. That's how I see it.
Also, being uncomfortable with the or being comfortable with the uncomfortable with financial literacy too. The If you have never had, you've got things happening in your life where it's not working out as you wished it would, there's some fear in not following through and getting better at financing as well, right? And following that budget, like you said, I think that is part of that as well. What is one thing we can do today that can start our path to financial literacy?
I always think about mindset, like having that financial mindset. It always starts with how we think and how we see money and how we can establish our relationship with money. Because I think the problem is the society tells you that, you know what, money is your enemy, but it doesn't have to be
Mm.
like that. It's true, we do see people suffering from money, but why is it that? Because everyone thinks that if I have less money, not gonna make it like I'm not gonna make it like towards the end of the month. I'm not gonna be able to like pay off like my expenses and stuff like that. But it's always having that belief that, you know what, it's okay. It's building that financial mindset, because it always starts with that, with the self-belief, with having a financial mindset and having a positive relationship with money. And I think this does not just apply with money, it just applies with anything in life. Having this self-belief that you can do it. And definitely with money, I think it always starts with financial with the mindset, and then just taking little action. But I would say that 80% of the job just has to be with your mindset. That's it. And then the rest will come through.
Umi, thank you so much for this. This was wonderful.
Thank you.